If you're building out your camper van, or if you just like to watch camper van build out videos and you find them entertaining, I know I do, then welcome. Maybe you're doing your build and you're looking to optimize your storage, you're looking to keep things neat, and you're looking for a way to carry more stuff with you when you camp, more important stuff, of course, then this video is for you. I am going to show you how to build out these shelves that sit into the well where the third row windows are in your camper van. But more importantly, I can save you a ton of headaches. I'm going to show you exactly what not to do and how to make your life easier when you're building these shelves. Welcome to the channel. I'm Leslie and I built out our minivan camper. I'm going to be going through every aspect, every component of this build and showing you how to do it yourself if you're so inclined. Hopefully this gives you some inspiration. So go ahead and, if you would, subscribe so we can stay, in touch. After you subscribe, leave a little comment below saying I subscribed, and I do my best to get back to every single comment that I possibly can. So get in there and ask any questions you have. Okay, so here you are. Well, maybe you're here. You're staring at a blank canvas. Ask yourself, before you do anything, ask yourself, what are you trying to achieve? I designed our van with maximum bed width. This was one of the things I knew was non-negotiable because there's two of us traveling and we need that space. Hence the shelves on the side that don't take up any bed space at all. The first thing I did was I looked at this window well. Now the window well has this little slope to it, and the slope comes out at an angle, which means that the bottom of the shelf can rest in there, right where the arrow is, and I can use that point in there for support. In order to block out these windows, I just use some cheap black foam core board, and I ran the edges with some duct tape. And then in addition to that, I took, just because, to take it up a notch, I took a patterned fabric and I just stapled it to the inside of it. So it just makes the inside of the shelves look a little nicer. And it looks great from the outside of the van. All you see is the black foam core board. It actually just looks like a tinted window that you can't see into. To make sure that this doesn't have any problems, I took a couple of small, finishing nails and just used them to secure the window coverings. Okay, now let's get to the fun part. This is looking at the bed frame, standing at the rear of the van looking towards the front. The frame is not as wide as the full width of the interior, and that's because you're going to be putting a bed platform, you're going to be putting a bunch of cushions or mattress, and if you're designing something like my build, you're going to want these things to move up and down, and so they're going to need space. You'll be surprised at how much room you'll have between starting with the bed frame and the actual edge of the interior of the van. Here we're looking at the same bed frame, but we're looking inside one of the sliding side doors, looking towards the back of the van. Now you get a sense of how the bed frame sits in the space. Now, come with me here and come on down to the floor. And you can see on the side of the bed frame, in between the edge of the bed frame and the edge of the plastic interior of the van, there's some wood here. One is a 2x2 strip, and that is where you secure the legs that support your shelf. I'll show you exactly how that works. looking from the top as if you're sitting on top of the bed and you're looking down in between the bed frame and the van interior, this is what you see. There's that 2x2 strip that you can see secures those two pieces of trim that I used as legs to support the shelf. You with me so far? All right. Here's sort of more of a close-up of just one of the legs and how it fits into that 2x2. I will give you the specifics on this here coming up. Okay, so think of it like this. Here is your 2x2 that you're going to run in between the bed frame and the interior. That's going to support the legs of your shelf. Start with those legs, whatever you're using, trim or what. They don't have to be super strong, but you do want something that's got a little heft to it. I used about a 2-inch wide trim, maybe 2.5 or so. Anything that's flat and semi-sturdy will do just fine. And when you start with these legs, of course, start with them much, much longer than they're eventually going to be. You're going to want to cut them down little by little to become the right length. You don't want to start with something that becomes too short and have to do it all over again. Believe me. So with your 2x2 laid down on the floor between the interior of the van and your bed frame, take those legs and set them exactly where they will be secured on the 2x2. Just sort of rest them on top so you know where they're going to be. Next, get a pencil and trace around the bottom of those legs onto the 2x2 so you can see where those legs are going to hit that 2x2. Once you have that space marked out, make a notch all the way through from the top to the bottom on that 2x2. That way you can take the trim or whatever it is you're using as legs, and you can secure them into the 2x2 so that they go all the way down to the floor, and use a little wood glue and then screw them in so you have a nice solid support piece. Once you have this whole unit now, the 2x2 with the two legs attached to it, set it down where it's going to live there in between your bed frame and the interior of the van on the floor. And you'll notice that if your van's anything like mine, the bed frame is going to be built so that it doesn't actually hit the 2x2. You're going to need to put in maybe an extra chunk of 2x2 or something in there that's sturdy and will actually secure your 2x2 that holds the legs to the bed frame. So whatever it takes, make sure to take up that gap. A big block would be perfect, and then just screw it all together. Here again is what the whole thing looks like from the top, as if you're sitting on top of the bed looking down in between the bed frame and the interior of the van. You can see the 2x2, you can see the strips of trim that I use secured into the notches in the 2x2, and you can also see the extra wood blocks that I installed there to make sure everything is secured to the bed frame. Now you have a base you can really work with here. Remember, your legs should be much taller than you need them to be, so you can cut them down to the right height. Get out your cardboard, cut a template for the floor of your shelf. You'll want to experiment with the angle and where exactly it's going to hit on those legs, so you want plenty of room to play with. Once you've figured out the exact shape you want for the floor of your shelf with your cardboard template, go ahead and cut it out with a light thin wood or whatever wood you're using. Go nuts. Then you can attach that to the legs by taking another piece of 2x2 and securing that between the top end of your legs. You'll want to measure your 2x2 to go from the outside of each of your leg so it can support the floor of your shelf that's going to sit on top of it. Here's a view of the 2x2 secured to the tops of the legs here from the side view. Once you find the right height for the floor of your shelf and you secure this 2x2 to the top end of your legs, you can go ahead and screw them on, or if you're like me and you don't want to do anything until you're absolutely sure, clamp them on. And you can continue to do measurements for the rest of the build. Now, get a little fun and creative. This is the part where I can't really tell you what to do, except that you're going to want to take a lot of cardboard and make a lot of templates, figuring out where exactly you're going to want the outsides of your shelves, the cabinetry part, to hit along the inside of your van. Each piece of it will be a different shape. Of course, there'll be a ton of curves, and as you probably already know, nothing in a van is square and nothing is level. So just have fun using a bunch of different cardboard shapes and figuring out where everything should hit and what kind of shape you want to your shelf overall. Now, this is the part where I wish I had known and I wish I had done this differently, and I would have saved myself an outrageous number of headaches. So at this point, what I had done was I took all my shapes, I cut them out in wood, and I tried to affix them to the shelf without first building a frame. Duh. Well, my lack of carpentry skills here really showed, but now what I would do differently is at this point, before cutting out all the cabinetry of the shelves, all the outside of the shelves, before cutting that out in wood, go ahead and build yourself a frame. Use some little 1x2s, something that you can build a nice frame with that's going to hold the cabinetry, the outside of your shelf, nice and solid. Here's a picture of the frame that I built retroactively. I actually had to go in, build a frame, and then fix the exterior panels, the cabinet panels to the frame. It was such a pain. Don't do it backwards the way I did. First build your frame, then affix your cabinet panels to your frame. Once you have your frame in place and you're really getting to know all your cabinet panels that you're making and all the little nuances and the shapes of them and how they're all going to fit together, go ahead and cut them out of wood. Again, I would probably cut them a little bit larger than I think I'm going to need, so you can shave them down as needed to make sure you get a nice fit. Once you have the outside of your shelves put together, okay, look at it. Yeah, it's in there, but it's not really fully secured yet, right? You've only really secured this shelf from the bottom. So looking at these crossbars that go from one shelf to the other, that go across the top of the van roof, you can see that they add another level of support. That's one of the reasons that I installed them. The other reason, of course, is the storage, because you can put your window coverings or something flat up on top of them, an added bonus, but really you're going to need them for the additional support. Start by taking a couple of pieces of wood strips or trim. I use some other type of trim for this. It's about an inch and a half wide. And figure out how far from the ceiling you're going to want them, and then measure how far across they're going to be. The next thing you're going to have to do is to create these wooden angles that will be the go-between between the outside of the shelf and the trim that spans across the top of the ceiling. Those pieces should be the same exact width as the trim that stretches across the ceiling. Trust me, it's going to make it easier. Once you have those pieces measured and cut, you're going to want to take your wooden angles and secure them to the face of the cabinet. Now, make sure that when you're screwing them into the cabinet, that there's a solid piece of wood behind the face of the cabinet for the screw to hit. And then take your trim and screw that onto the top side of your wooden angle. Of course, I used wood glue in there as well. That's going to help minimize any kind of squeaking in the van, and it's also going to hold it nice and tight. Once you have those up, congratulations, you've got shelves in your van. You're probably going to want to watch this video a couple of times. You also might even have some cabinetry skills or some woodworking skills that I obviously don't, but I figured it out. And even if you are a novice at doing something like this, you too can figure it out, believe me. I want to wish you the best of luck with this project. Have a good time with it. Remember to breathe, take breaks, and have fun. If you felt like some of this, any part of it was a little bit helpful or semi-entertaining, and you'd like to hear more about the rest of the build that I did here in our camper van, then please consider subscribing. Thanks. I'll see you out on the road.